He's gonna have to fight! Bang! Pressure's coming! Dumped! Hogtied! When you've given everything, what will the record books say about you, Matthew?
And welcome back for Season 2, Episode 31 of White Noise Sports with Tanner White. Last week, to start with, I awarded a good number of way too early NFL honors. Of course, I had to say something, and then Puka Nacua, my Offensive Player of the Year picked up an ankle injury. But everybody else I picked has pretty much helped out their cases recently. This week, we're going to round out all of those picks with some more NFL way too early honors. Then LeBron's second decision last week didn't go over too well with anybody. And we wrapped up with predicting the MLB divisional round clinching games. I swung and missed pretty hard here. And we wrapped up with predicting the MLB divisional round clinching games. I swung and missed pretty hard on those for the most part, but in my defense, you couldn't have really predicted that the Tigers and Mariners would play the maybe best pitched postseason game ever, going down all the way to the 15th inning. And now to launch into episode 31, the rest of my way too early NFL honors. Let's do offensive and defensive rookie of the year first. I think the offensive side was just decided during last Thursday night's Eagles-Giants game. It is easily Cam Skattebo, the fourth-round running back from Arizona State. This guy didn't have a reason to think he'd be a starter. He didn't have a reason to think he'd get a bulk of the carries. He didn't have reason to think that America would completely fall in love with him and he'd rapidly become one of the most popular players in the league. He was the guy who was headbutting brick walls during his time at ASU. The guy that would create contact instead of making people miss, and he'd carry whole defenses on his back. Now he's carried all that into the most fun rookie year that we've seen maybe ever. The numbers are good. He's probably not going to be an efficient per-carry guy in the long term, but he's at 4.1 on the season right now. He scored 3 touchdowns on Thursday night to help the Giants absolutely wax the Eagles. In the 5 games he's been involved in the game plan, 338 yards on 80 carries, 5 rushing touchdowns, 20 catches on 24 targets for another 155 yards. Really good for pretty much anyone, let alone a rookie, but on the New York Giants, it's elite. Honorable mention, for now, is also very easy, and this guy definitely might steal the top spot and win it before the season's over. Emeka Egbuka, essentially the Bucs' #1 receiver right now, looks like the truth. He's like all of those other Ohio State receivers of the last several years. Big, 6'1", 202 at the combine. Strong, physical, great hands. And he's off to a torrid start. 4th in the league in yards with 469, tied for 2nd in receiving touchdowns with 5, all on only 27 catches. That's over 17 yards per. Only issue is he's probably out this week against the Lions with a hamstring injury, but there's still no Mike Evans, no Chris Godwin, and there's tons of targets available in a great Bucs offense. Side note, start looking for some other options within that Bucs offense at receiver. That'll probably bolster your fantasy team. Defensive Rookie of the Year is throwing a dart right now. My first thought, and the one that I've watched in primetime the most, is Eagles linebacker Jihad Campbell, 31st overall pick this year out of where else? Alabama. Pro Football Focus likes him as the 12th best off-ball linebacker out of 140 ranked. The stat sheet likes him too. 40 total tackles in 6 weeks, an interception, a forced fumble, 2 passes defensed, and 7 total pressures in 38 pass rushing snaps. I love off-ball linebackers, and I always will, and they're just not nearly represented enough in any awards voting. So strange when they have to be good at every single thing that you can ask a defensive player to do. This is the biggest reach out of all of my picks, probably, because there's not going to be a clear favorite for a while. The honorable mention is the least fun choice, but it's the first defensive player off of the board in this year's draft. It's 3rd overall pick Abdul Carter out of Penn State. I wish that he had any kind of numbers to back this up, but those are hard to come by, in fairness to him, with a team and a defense as poor as this Giants unit has been. What the numbers tell you is he's only had half a sack, 13 tackles, and 1 TFL in 6 weeks. What they don't tell you is all of the advanced stuff that PFF actually likes about him. They have him with 24 pressures, or 4 per game. That's an elite number. 16 quarterback hurries, and 7 quarterback hits. And there's the fact that with physical traits like his, it is incredibly unlikely for the sack numbers to not show up at some point. He's going to have that positive regression. He's going to get double-teamed. He's going to get chipped by a running back or a tight end to his side, and he's still going to be very valuable and dangerous when he does get those one-on-ones. But probably the traditional numbers won't be there or won't be very eye-catching this year. He didn't work out at the Combine or his pro day. He was dealing with some injuries, but he probably would have run under 4.5 in the 40, and he's got that Micah Parsons build of around 6'3", 250. His presence against the run game isn't quite there yet either, which was kind of a critique against him in college, and that popped up as well during the Thursday night game a bit against the Eagles, but he has too many tools to not succeed in the long term. Protector of the Year is the new O-line specific award. This is super cool. The Bills' Deion Dawkins, the absolute road grader left tackle, and retired tackle turned analyst Andrew Whitworth made this happen from scratch. Very good PR move by them, and finally some recognition for the big guys. This one is going to go to the league's best overall blocker. Rather quick discussion on this one, at least for now. Penei Sewell, Lions right tackle. One of the more generational offensive line prospects kind of ever. He came into the league at 20 years old, and he has never stopped dominating people to the tune of 2 straight first-team All-Pros, an 11th place finish in Offensive Player of the Year last year, and the #1 overall and run-blocking grade among all tackles by PFF so far. No sacks allowed, no penalties for the league's best offense. That's not a coincidence. Honorable mention here, Lane Johnson, Eagles right tackle. He's a living legend, future Hall of Famer, though by his insane standards, his performance has been down a little bit. He's been called for 1 penalty and allowed 1 sack. That's kind of what that means to him to be below his standards. He's 10th among all tackles in PFF grade, but a couple of good weeks will probably put him back in the top 5 where he belongs. He's only 47th in snaps taken among tackles, mostly because of a stinger and a shoulder injury that have cost him a couple of drives here and there. All the smart money is on him being fine, as he's got that LeBron James level kind of dedication to taking care of himself. There's probably going to be a little bit of name recognition and career achievement that feeds into this award, but I don't have an issue with that. I still think it's going to be Penei Sewell. Comeback Player of the Year is already, in my mind, down to Dak Prescott and Christian McCaffrey. I've heard some people throw in Aiden Hutchinson and Daniel Jones, and maybe if they have a lot of success on their individual units, that is the Lions pass rush and the Colts passing offense, if those continue to be among the best, then maybe. But Dak is still being asked to shoulder more load than any other quarterback, maybe any other player, and is excelling with CeeDee Lamb still out of the lineup. McCaffrey is still getting 3 more touches per game than any other guy in the league too. I'm going to cop out here and say that it's a perfect 50-50 tie, and they split it. I'm not even sure if that's even possible if the league allows that, but I'm doing it. The numbers on each guy, briefly. Dak has thrown 229 times, just a hair shy of 40 attempts per game, for 1,617 yards and 13 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. McCaffrey's pure rushing numbers don't look so hot. 3.1 yards a carry on 108 carries, second most in the league, a longest rush of only 15 yards and 1 touchdown on the ground. But because he's Christian McCaffrey, and he has maybe the best hands of all time for a running back, and the entire rest of the Niners offense is pretty much injured, he's their leading receiver too, with 444 yards on 46 catches and 3 more touchdowns. That's almost 130 total yards a game, on pace for over 2,200 total yards and 11 total touchdowns. The injuries each are coming back from last year. Dak tore his hamstring and played in 8 games. CMC sprained his PCL and dealt with Achilles tendonitis to the tune of under 4 whole games. This is the most fair way I can think of to acknowledge both of them. And yes, I know that I already picked Dak for MVP last week. Believe me, this all feels so sour in my mouth. I don't like it, and no one has ever won both at once. But by the time CeeDee Lamb comes back and gets back, if he's healthy, to being a top 3 receiver in the league, Dak could be the first. Especially as the Cowboys defense continues to be second to last in points allowed, last in yardage, and 3rd downs allowed. Dak is having to work harder than anybody else in the league to just keep them in games, and the fantasy numbers, too, will be huge. Next, let's ponder MLB postseason starting pitching and how ridiculous some of the starts have been from the game's best the last couple of weeks. It's not going to be a full dissertation on Tarek Skubal, as, of course, the Tigers lost in that epic saga of a Game 5. What I will do is state, as I see it, why modern pitching philosophies work a little better in the postseason than they do in the regular season, and how that's aided some of these dominant outings. Skubal is the first one I want to highlight, to be fair. It's really hard to pick a best start of the 3 that he made this year in the postseason. The first one in Game 1 of the Wild Card Series with Cleveland. 7 2/3, that's his deepest postseason start of his career. 14 strikeouts, a Tigers all-time playoff record, 3 hits, 1 run. The second, ALDS Game 2 with Seattle. He did get nuked twice by Jorge Polanco. Not great pitches to him either. But besides those 2 at-bats, it was 7 innings, 3 hits, no runs, 1 walk, 9 strikeouts. And the final start that gave Detroit such a great shot in Game 5 of the ALDS was 6 innings, 13 more strikeouts, 2 hits, 1 run, and the latter 2 starts were done in under 100 pitches. Flash forward to the Dodgers starters against the Brewers in the NLCS. Blake Snell went 8 scoreless with 10 Ks, followed by Yoshinobu Yamamoto putting on Tuesday night with a complete game, 3-hit, 1-run performance. The first postseason complete game in 8 years. Now, what do all of these performances against very good offenses in incredibly important games have in common? And how about the starters in those games? The number one thing I see, it's not complicated, but it is disgusting. It's variety. It's not difficult to Google each of Skubal, Snell, and Yamamoto's arsenals and find out exactly what they throw, where, and how hard. And it's so perfect for the modern-day game and its emphasis on 3 true outcomes. I've mentioned this before, but the term refers to the increased percentage over the years of plate appearances in the game that end with a home run, walk, or a strikeout. Home runs are valuable and fun, and everybody loves them. The Yankees and Dodgers were first and second in team home runs in the regular season, and they were very, very good teams. And even more funny about New York, they walked the most in the league as a team and struck out the 3rd most. No team could embody that 3 true outcomes approach better. Hitters don't modify their swings dramatically with the count. They don't modify their swings based on the pitcher they're facing. They don't modify their swings based on seeing the pitch type out of the hand if they even can. And that means pitchers have most of the advantages. You could call Blake Snell the quote-unquote anomaly out of this group for only throwing 4 different pitches. Snell throws a fastball, curveball, changeup, and slider. Skubal and Yamamoto further stand out for their stuff. Skubal has a fastball, sinker, changeup, which I did mention last week, I believe, is the best single pitch in baseball this year by run value, knuckle curve, and a slider. Then Yamamoto has a 6-pitch mix, which might become even more meta if it continues to play from guys at the big league level. He throws fastball splitter, which if Skubal or Snell were ever to add another pitch, that might be the one for them. That could be fun. And as well as a curveball, cutter, sinker, and slider. I believe every one of these pitch types have to be counted as at least 3% of the pitches they threw this year to be included in their Baseball Savant pages. I'll link each of those for you in the description so you can see what I'm talking about. Does velocity matter? Even in the postseason? Obviously. Skubal has touched 103 before, Yamamoto 99, which seems a little bit more ho-hum now, but is still elite, especially for a guy listed at 176 pounds, and Snell tops out at 98. But if you slowed them down to league average, and you gave each of them this absurd number of ways to get hitters out, I fully believe their numbers could be the same. Nerves are heightened in the postseason, whether hitters want to admit it or not. And plenty of guys have been just caught looking and absolutely frozen by these guys. Umpires have, visually we think, and there's kind of debates online about this, it seems, expanded their strike zones, some more than others in this postseason. And all of that has led to some of the best postseason pitching of all time. It's got to be the variety that is the spice of life for all of these studs. And now I'll spend just a couple of minutes recapping my powerlifting meet from this past Saturday. First of all, to anyone that caught the live stream, thanks a ton. The camera and the audio quality just so happened to be quite decent compared to what I and most people have come to expect from the whole sport as somebody who's been around it a lot. Still, though, there's always more to be desired, and if I wasn't competing myself, then I definitely have been calling this one too. Of course, I had a number of my friends jokingly or even kind of seriously ask, hey, are you going to do both? And don't tempt me, right? Maybe that's something I think about doing sometime. But I am really starting to get some traction in the whole powerlifting space. I have lots of goals around state and national level competitions. Plus, now that I think about it, why even stop at national? It's one more sport that I cover, yeah, but there's something about being a competitor in it too that makes me feel like I can go pretty far with it. So for my actual results on the platform, I had what's known as a Supermeet. I went 9 for 9, I hit all my attempts, and I set PRs across the board and with my total. That was a lot of fun. I'll leave one more link to the live stream as well as my open powerlifting page. If you haven't heard of that, it's just a big database that holds results from tens of thousands of different meets across federations all over the world. And it just gives a little something with our name on it to show for the work that we put in. You can look up all the numbers there and toggle between kilos and pounds because, trust me, we don't know the conversions that well either. Basically, I got a whole lot better in 1 year in just my second meet, coaching myself, and it was probably the most productive training year of my life. I'll be looking to compete in 1 to 2 more meets for next year and maybe at that same pace for a while, although I'm not quite sure when yet because, of course, I want to keep announcing them too. I am trying to put a lot of big meets on my schedule. If I'm lucky, I might be able to get 3 of them in November, 2 of which are at the state level, and that kind of never happens where there's 3 that are that close to each other that I'm able to travel and even manage. The biggest meet on my calendar by far is the USA Powerlifting Michigan State Championships. Those are going to be the second to last weekend of November, the 22nd and 23rd. Practically all day long, both days with a big primetime session. Absolutely can't wait. The production company seems just as excited as I am, and of course I always hope to parlay one event into the next and the next and the next and so on. I'd be super willing to embrace or kind of take up that role as one of the voices of powerlifting anyway, but I should remind you now, just as we get to this point and wrap up the episode, that you should check out all my socials, because we're on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, at The Voice of Tanner, X, just Voice of Tanner, and YouTube is the whole thing spelled out with spaces, The Voice of Tanner. And feel free to connect on LinkedIn if you're into that kind of thing. Leave a like, comment, and share. I'll catch you next week. This has been Season 2, Episode 31 of White Noise Sports with Tanner White. Thanks for joining me.
He's gonna have to fight! Bang! Pressure's coming! Dumped! Hogtied! When you've given everything, what will the record books say about you, Matt?